Well, hello. Welcome to the show.
We are back. I'm so excited.
This is going to be a wild one today. Uh, we will get into it when we get into the Antarctica portion and some of the reveals that are out there. Some of you may have seen those clips. We will talk about them. And we will also talk about some interesting things that we observed during that press conference. But first of all, I want to say hello and welcome and thank you to Purple Valkyrie as ever for making the time to be on the chat. How are you doing?
Doing well. It's been a long week, but very excited to get to talk more woo woo with you. And you're absolutely right. It's been a big week for anybody interested in this subject.
It is kind of crazy. The synchronized release of this, which seems to be building toward a particular narrative, but there I go spoiling my show. John Carpenter, Music Thrum, is in Nerdporil's brain. Hail, Brian, it's great to see you. Roma the Empire is in the house. Yep, dog running. We've got Mystery, Men, and Monsters saying, what do I know about the Antarctic? That's where the Chagas are from.
It's not wrong. Great name as well. Good to see you.
And hail to everybody who's here. Purple Valkyrie is going to kick us off today, and we're going to start out with a couple of sort of teaser, a little foreplay for what we want to talk about with woo woo. Go ahead, Purple Valkyrie. This is fascinating. Apparently, there's big effing snakes and tiny little whales.
Yes, and this came as a surprise to me. Now I knew that we had snakes. Just to preface it, we've got a couple. We've got a grass snake, which is kind of little, and then we have what I thought we had was an adder, which is a type of viper, which is our only venomous snake. But it turns out, because of an accident, this little Welsh community also has a snake that hasn't been in Britain since the Ice Age.
Okay,
Which
that's
is kind
weird.
of cool. Yeah.
That's
So
really weird.
let's see what they've got to say. The Welsh community living side by side with huge wild snakes. Just a heads up, guys, if you are afraid of snakes, there are some pictures, but we love pictures here, so there you go. So, having endured the long winter, and believe me, it was in the UK, the constrictor snakes, which is Britain's largest wild species, has begun venturing out. We've had some really nice warm weather the past couple of weeks, and the snakes are taking full advantage of it. So, what are these snakes that they keep talking about? After a long, cold winter, people across Wales have been able to enjoy the recent warm weather, but it's not just brought out sun seekers. For one community, it's also brought out Britain's largest wild snake. They are re emerging from hibernation. And sadly, they're not doing. They're not faring very well on the roads, unfortunately. So,
How big are these snakes? Like, are they
so
like are they 2 inches? Are they 5 feet? Are they like this big around? Come on, I'm an American,
do you
so
want it in feet
when
or
you say
meters? Yeah.
snake, I need to know what the hell you're talking about.
So this is technically our biggest snake. Now you guys will probably say that's kind of pathetic. They get to about 6 feet long, so that's
That's a
pretty
good
big.
size snake.
That's pretty
That's
good
a good
for England. But
That's
they are absolutely harmless to both people and pets, and they're actually very useful because they're a type of rat snake, so they take away vermin and things. So this Welsh community is over the moon to see them. Quite honestly.
I wonder if it's going to eat that indicted former head of Scotland, because that's a rat. You guys got a couple other rats in your government, and I'm not the
Oh yes.
world's biggest fan of your London mayor either. But I digress. Go ahead, Purple Valkyrie.
So apparently this is called and if I pronounce this wrong, you've heard
It's
me
fine.
before. It's fine. It's the Escapanian rat snake, apparently. It's a type of constrictor. It's often seen in gardens, undergrowth, compost heaps, but they having embraced the hot weather, they've also been seen on roads where they've been basking. And what you get on roads, you get cars, unfortunately. So people are trying to be very, very mindful of these things. They obviously, the population isn't massive, so people are trying their absolute best not to kill any more. But apparently 3 have been killed already in the past couple of weeks. Unfortunately, yes.
Question.
Yes.
Asks, what do they
Yeah.
taste like? Why don't you go out there, grab one of these, club it with a frying pan,
Scoop one up off the road.
fillet it up,
Yes.
and then you can make shoes out of the skin, and then you can also, I don't know, barbecue. I don't know. What do you do in England? You boil everything. So you can have some boiled snake, and you
With
guys eat those baked
potatoes.
beans,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I've eaten snake before. I've had rattlesnake, and it kind of tastes like chicken. But then again, if you deep fry anything and put it in a
Mhm.
nice batter, I think it's going to taste like chicken, except
Yeah, I mean,
genetically modified chicken or fake chicken meat.
yeah, chicken adjacent. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I'd rather eat rat snake.
Hail to Smile a While. Thank you for being here. Of course, thank you to Setlick3 Gaming for being here. Thank you to
Hey,
Roman for being
guys.
here. Thanks for everybody for being here. We are going to be getting into the Antarctic stuff. We just wanted to cover some funner articles because that stuff is actually kind of heavy,
It
to be
is.
honest. Also want to shout out, we've got Das Wolfen. Did someone
Hey.
say aliens? As a matter of fact, we did. And we'll get into it. Right now, we're just covering big ass snakes and tiny little whales. So hail and welcome. Thanks for being here.
Good to see you. So, just to give a little bit more background on these particular snakes, they appeared in the mid 1960s when a guy by the name of Robert Jackson, the founder of the Welsh Mountain Zoo, imported some from Italy. In the early 1970s, some are thought to escape. That's not the only thing that's escaped. We've talked about the big black cats that are seen around the UK, and these baby snakes were found around the zoo grounds. Initially, they thought that they were grass snakes, but then they were later confirmed to be these much bigger, much rarer rat snakes, and they're rather beautiful. I think they're great. Look at these things. And as I
Yeah.
said, they are completely harmless. They're non-venomous. They're a type of constrictor, and people are actually really happy to see these things around because they're taking out the local rat population.
Mm.
But I thought that was pretty cool. I really hope
I had
they
no
start
idea.
to spread. Yeah, but it is a small population. Only 60 to 70 breeding adults in the area, unfortunately.
As a Yank, whenever we think about snakes, I think a lot of us think about St. Patrick driving all the snakes out of Ireland.
Mhm.
And then you guys are busy bringing in freaking boa constrictors and you're happy about it. So we have another question. This one comes from
Yeah.
It says, you guys eat baked beans? Weren't they food from U-Lot in the USA? Purple, do you know anything about that? The genus of that in baked beans and things like that in UK
Um,
versus cowboy?
I don't. I'm not sure the difference, but we absolutely love baked beans, and I know that especially Americans make fun of us for putting baked beans on toast. But there is nothing more comforting than a good dollop of baked beans on a piece of toast. Love it. Absolutely love it.
My fellow Yanks are nodding along politely. I like my
Uh-huh.
baked beans next to a hamburger that's about this thick and barely cooked. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
I'm risking food poisoning because it's not even warm. That's how I like my hamburgers. Speaking of hamburgers, we've got low spec Linex is in the house. What do
Hey.
you think about baked beans? Please vote in the Antarctic poll. A lot of thought and care went into that. Obviously. Low spec Linex also says non-poisonous steaks are great to have around. I agree. When I used
Agreed.
to have multiple raised beds, I had 20 raised beds. I had about 6 acres of a homestead. I'd see them running around all the time. And the biggest thing I needed to do was prevent my chickens who were free ranging from eating all of the damn snakes because they grab these big ass snakes and chase each other around trying to eat the snake. And I'm like, leave the snake alone. Leave the snake alone. But
Chickens are hardcore. I've seen them rip apart frogs, mice, anything that they can get hold of. If you don't think that the dinosaurs
yeah.
became birds, then you've never seen chickens attack things.
Yeah, I've watched them choke down some crazy things and then try and watch the other ones trying to grab it out of their mouth while they're trying to swallow crazy things. But no, we're not talking about Amber Heard. We're talking about backyard chickens. I already know I'm going to get it demonetized, so I don't even know. We've got says comedy scene from Blazing Saddles was about baked beans. Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
It was.
Yes, it
Yes.
was. This is a great article, Purple Valkyrie. I didn't know any of this stuff, to be honest with you.
I didn't. I knew we had snakes, but I had no idea that this particular species, and as it says here, it's a returning species because they were once native in Britain before the last ice age. Now, people would like this population to continue, and I'd like it to continue as well. If they could spread a little bit further beyond Wales and have a stable breeding population. I think that would be wonderful. But as it says here, they can reach 6 feet long and much longer than Britain's grass snake, which I've also seen, which are about 3.5 feet long. The food here is scarcer. Until recently, the weather was less accommodating. Because of the warm weather, we've had a recent explosion in population, and hopefully we get a good basis for this population to continue in Colwyn Bay.
So you've heard it here first. If you're visiting Wales, there's a bunch of snakes that have escaped from Azkaban. Isn't that how they're pronounced? They're Azkaban snakes.
Azkaban grass snake, yes, rat snakes, absolutely, yes.
It's just weird. I never think about like big boa constrictors in the UK. Purple Valkyrie, you know what else I don't think about?
What's that?
I don't think about looking in my backyard and seeing half-naked women that are witches eating rotting corpses.
Of all the things you'd go looking for, that's got to be low on the list. I mean, I wouldn't say it's not on the list, but it's got to be down the bottom somewhere.
So I originally saw this article in the New York Post. This is real. I mean, as real as it can be. It's in the New York Post. It was also reported on by Breitbart. Now, this incident, let's go ahead and watch some video about this, and then we'll break it down just a little bit more. So there's the individual, and I will go full screen on this. Kiss my ass. So it's a Canadian nurse was left terrified after recording what appears to be two nearly naked people eating a rotting animal corpse on her property. Check it out. Again, this is really weird.
What? Hey, ladies, what are you doing?
This woman is Karina Stanhope, and she found a dead deer by her garden. And of course, there's a bobcat which is snacking on the rotting flesh of the deer. She decided to leave it there, which doesn't make any sense to me. As somebody, I've had dead animals in my backyard. I had to get rid of them before my dog decided to disembowel and then roll in them, but she must not have a dog. But in this case, she decided it would be cool, I guess, to watch the corpse decompose.
Are you saying that if you don't remove dead animals from your garden, this is what might happen?
You know, not the half-naked witch part, but, you know, you're going to invite all kinds of predators, not to mention rats, disease, vermin, and you can also look at things like cholera, dysentery, you know, all the stuff that's going to happen in the Great Reset. But anyway, so yeah, this is from her backyard. There's the rotting animal carcass that she thought would be cool to leave there. Little did she know that she would become a minor internet celebrity when these two crazy naked chicks started stuffing the rotting flesh of this decaying deer into their mouths. And luckily she had a trail cam to capture it. As the article says, something far more sinister. Two people, only rags covering their privates, seemingly feasting on the dead animal. One of them's kind of a hot witch. The other one's like hot, you know, high school lunch lady. In a statement from Karina Hope to Kennedy News and Media says, quote, I don't know if she was kissing it, smelling, or eating it, but to touch a decaying carcass like that makes me feel sick. I don't know what the heck was up with that. It really freaked us out, and it's not something you see every day. Well, if you live in downtown Seattle, San Francisco, Philadelphia.
Depends on the geology, yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is normal. But, you know, in Canada, this appears to be not an everyday thing. It really freaked us out. It's not something you see every day. A lot of people mention skinwalkers and wendigos. Well, they're not wendigos, because if they were, that woman would be dead. So, yes. And as far as skinwalkers, I don't think they're in Canada, but I could be wrong. Of course, we have commentary on Facebook, which is where you go for all of your scientific analysis. So there's another picture where you get to check out the hot witch's ass, in my opinion. Chat, tell me if I'm wrong. And of course, the stupid pop-up is blocking it. But Stanhope said that she hasn't contacted authorities.
Why? Would be the next question.
In hopes that the bizarre event was a prank. All right.
I mean, I guess, but if I had crazy naked ladies in my back garden, I at least would want to tell somebody.
Well, that kind of sounds like most of my 20s was crazy naked ladies in my backyard. Those were good times. I miss the 90s quite a bit, honestly. But anyway, let's kind of get into the details of this just a little bit and we'll press on. But yeah, it was a nurse from Canada. She said there were witches in her backyard. It really freaked her out. And again, she decided to leave this dead and decaying carcass in the backyard. I mean, there it is. It was all over. It was in the UK. It was in the international press. But yeah, there's the decaying corpse with the one hot naked witch and the other not so hot naked witch apparently eating the rotting flesh. Wow, have more ads on this site.
I mean, I know times are hard for people and you've got to get your calories where you can find them, but yeah.
In case you needed a warning, because you're thinking of doing this yourself and no one's judging, is the Mid-Atlantic Wild Control Center said dead animals are known to carry all kinds of bacteria and diseases in their bodies. No shit. Those bacteria and viruses could be passed on from the dead creature to human and pets. And there's malaria is a disease that can spread from humans via contact with a dead animal. It is a bacteria usually found in mammals, rodents, and rabbits. Symptoms vary from mild to life-threatening. Well, there's all kinds of things that you can get. You do not want to screw around with not freshly dead things like that you find in the backyard. You certainly don't want to eat them. As far as it being a Wendigo, I think it's bullshit. I think the takeaway from this is if you're going to have naked witches eating dead shit in your backyard, make sure you get pics before they show up naked. Am I missing this, Purple, or is that pretty much the story?
No. If you're gonna claim that you've got naked ladies in the garden, you've got to be able to prove it. And says, I'm going to leave out some rotten chicken. Might get lucky.
Yeah. It certainly explains some of the things that I've seen driving by McDonald's. I will say that, Hail to everybody who's in chat. We've got Doviende Say Tovius again. We've got DJ Ronnie G is in the house as well. The Equalizer has joined us as we talk about the crazy woo-woo stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
Canada, one answer because of Justin Trudeau. I know. Well, I didn't see any shoe polish on them. But,
no, digging the loincloth though, that was a nice look.
It's kind of hot. It's got that Princess Leia slave costume from Empire, only eating dead shit and not fresh dead shit. Let's be honest about it. Purple DJ Ronnie G wants you to know that he loves baked beans. And good luck with that. Please set up a trail cam. And if you see any, I don't want any fatty naked chicks in the backyard eating dead things. Hot. If they're hot chicks in your backyard eating rancid chicken, I want video. I want pics. So Roman of the Empire drops one in. He says, baked beans, snakes, and Canadian witches. This is the best stream ever. Oh, but wait. We're not done with mostly naked witches, are we, Purple Valkyrie?
Oh no, we've got a marvelous segue into the next.
No. When your man Salty goes down these rabbit holes, he tries to do a very thorough. And God, I'm sorry, I'm trying to because I have 10 million links open. I gotta find.
So as Salty was saying, if you're gonna have crazy ladies who claim to be witches, you gotta find a hot one. I think that works pretty well. And we didn't actually see the face of the lady. She had her back to us, so I'm not saying that the two are connected, but I'm not ruling it out either.
Speaking of crazy bitches in your backyard eating dead things, some of you may have seen this story about Megan Fox admitting to being a witch and threatens to perform her own carcass eating ritual. This is, of course, from our friends at Bounding into Comics and John F. Trent. This was posted this week. So, yeah, Megan Fox admits to being a witch and threatens to do a carcass eating ritual. Now, this all stems from abuse accusations from an individual named Robbie Clark. What is this really all about? Well, Megan Fox has 3 boys. And this Robbie Starbuck has alleged, because he's had direct experience with the family and the nanny, that these 3 boys, I want you to take a look at this picture.
Mm-hmm.
These 3 boys don't like wearing girls' clothes.
I mean, just looking at them, they don't look very happy, do they? They don't look like they're very happy lads. Uh,
Yeah, the relationship is that his family used to play with their kids, and their kids talk to them, and you know how it goes. Um, Around 5 years ago, they were younger than they are in this picture. There was another witness, the nanny with the boys. One started and chimed in. The third child was not involved. So what this person said is, we knew California wouldn't do anything about it because the state celebrates stuff like this, and she's famous. Now,
mhm.
I'm not
Which
going to
is
go into
true.
particulars about what happens when you have some crazy Hollywood type who's forcing their boys to wear girls' clothing, or their girls to wear boys' clothing, because YouTube doesn't like me to talk about that any more than about what I'm going to get into with Antarctica. A weirder wrinkle to this, the person who accused this, is that they actually worked with Megan once on a small shoot. It's a very weird situation. Those boys clearly weren't happy. Imagine that, a Fruit Loop lady in Hollywood. Now, this appears, there was a quote from her, and it appears to have been changed. Anyway, what this is all about, Megan Fox threatened somebody who knew her and her kids from years ago. Their families played together, who came out on social media and said that she wasn't a very fit mother for forcing her boys to dress like girls. Megan Fox, there were tweets, and now they appear to have been removed, where she said, and I'm paraphrasing, that Megan Fox, knew before the boys were born that they were going to be girls.
Mm-hmm.
And that when they came out as boys, and I'm paraphrasing, she needed to make sure that they actually were what she, as a witch, felt them to be, which is a girl. So, Purple Valkyrie, I have a question for you. Who would you like to have in your backyard? What's the best case scenario? Do you want half naked, rancid deer eating witches in Canada? Option number one. Or do you
Mm-hmm.
want Megan? I know in the womb these boys that were born boys are actually girls, and I'm going to make them wear girls' clothes. Megan Fox, witch. Which one of those would you like to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough call, but I'm going to have to go with the Canadian ladies because at least they were minding their own business and snacking down on a dead deer. Megan Fox, she has a history of being quite extreme when it comes to this sort of thing, and some of the quotes that she's given as well. I think one she put on her Instagram was, she said, and I quote, "I've been burned at the stake by insecure, nice, narcissistic, impotent little men like you many times, and yet I'm still here." She added, "You're effing with the wrong witch." Now, this is a lady who has a history of bizarre behaviour, I think is the best way to put it. She carried around a vial of blood,
Yes.
I believe. So yeah, Megan's kind of out there when it comes to this sort of belief.
I think she's in that tier of Amber Heard crazy.
Yes, indeed.
I don't think she's that attractive. I mean, you look at her up close, and it looks like a mannequin. It's got that Kardashian thing where it just looks all fake,
Mm-hmm.
and spray on tan and fake everything and fake boob. It just, dude, I'll take factory original imperfect than this weirdo sculpted plastic,
Uncanny
flotation
Valley.
device,
Yeah.
uncanny valley weirdness any day of the week. But then again, I am a remnant of the 20th century. What do we got here from our chat? So DJ Ronnie G says Megan Fox is no longer hot to me in Transformers. Here's the thing, and you see it like with Madonna, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would like Madonna to be what she is, which is an aging Italian woman. And aging Italian women are graceful, they're beautiful, they're funny. I've known a lot of them. And instead we get Madonna, who kind of looks like the stunt double for Gollum. And I don't get it. You know what I mean? Now, Hollywood, we all know what it does. Hollywood punishes women after they get over the age of 40. That's why you see a lot of them deciding to change their sexuality. because that's how they get roles. I have to stop talking about this. This is a woo-woo show, not a reality show. Roman of the Empire says that he picked the naked dead deer eating witches. Dude, me too. Inhale the snacks. And
Hey.
friends, it's great to see you. All right, let's press on to the next one. We got one more article and then we're going into the Antarctic stuff. And there's a reason for this because
Yes.
I wanted some time to elapse before I get into the Antarctica stuff. And I'm not being dramatic because this is the one topic and the one show where I had to think really long and hard about what we're going to cover with it. And Purple will
And
agree with that.
how, yes, and
Yeah,
how we're
and
going to cover
how.
it.
All right, so Purple Valkyrie, we're going to play tag team on this, and there's a reason why we are covering bizarre and horrifying cases of mass hysteria through history. This one comes to us from ancientorigins.net. So, Purple Valkyrie, you actually suggested this quite a while ago.
Yes, this is one that we've had in the list, and believe me, guys, we have a very long list of woo-woo, and I thought this would be a fun one, because since we're talking about hysteria and people acting out of the ordinary, what best to highlight that than going back in history and bringing up some cases of where people on a huge scale have acted in a very strange way, like shutting yourselves in your house for a year, and that sort of.
Yeah. Only being able to eat fast food and shop at transnational corporations and stand 6 feet apart. And you can't go outside and be alone on a beach or you'll be arrested and ticketed. Like those types of mass hysteria things that people go along with. All right, let's get into this. From a historical perspective, mass hysteria is a term used to describe the situation in which physical or psychological symptoms appear in mass, spreading rapidly throughout communities and occasionally across whole cities and countries. Sometimes these are manufactured. During an outbreak, afflicted individuals may experience uncontrollable laughter, fainting, fits, dizziness, muscle weakness, or any other number of symptoms that do not appear to have a physical cause. It's not like taking multiple jabs for an untested mRNA thing where turbo cancer is created, or you develop 18-foot long tapeworm like blocks in your arteries. That's not what we're clots. That's not at all what we're talking about. Now, cases of this hysteria have been reported all over the world for centuries, and we're going to go into a couple of them. Now, the word hysteria comes from the Greek word hystera, meaning uterus, and is generally attributed to Hippocrates. So
yes, it was also very famous and well used in the Victorian times. Whenever ladies decided to get a little bit above their station, she's hysterical, take her to the asylum.
And what was a remedy for hysteria, Purple Valkyrie? What did they generally attribute? Why were these women in Victoria, England, the prototypical SJW Karens, what was causing them to be hysterical?
Not enough nookie, apparently. Yes. It's like they needed a release, I believe the doctors said.
So these doctors would come in and stimulate these uppity, uptight Victorian women and get them off that were repressed, and then they stopped being hysterical. Does anybody think there's any relevance at all to what's going on in current year? I'm just saying. And I understand the whole 2D C, D battery, C battery, hell, kickstart, whatever you got, option is always there, but there ain't no thing. Meat substitutes just don't. Salty's going to stop talking. I'm going to go back to the article about that. So by the Middle Ages, a lot of this was replaced by a belief in witchcraft, demonic possession, or insanity has a clause. That's why they burn witches at the stake, because some chicks having fits on the floor, things like that. And now it's in extreme cases linked to emotional or mental stress. Now, here's some of the more famous cases throughout history of mass hysteria. Purple Valkyrie, you actually talked about this one before I even brought this article up. You go ahead and take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is one of the ones that I was most famous for because we've actually I talked about it in the past. This is the medieval dancing mania in the 13th to 17th century. Now, this wasn't one long one, but it's one that cropped up again and again throughout Europe. So basically, what it was, dancing mania, otherwise known as the Dancing Plague, St. John's Dance, or the Dance of St. Vitrus, gripped mainland Europe between the 13th and 17th centuries. Uh,
You
I
know, my
don't know why.
grandmother,
Yeah.
my grandmother used to get, and this is a true story because my grandparents on that side were Eastern European. My grandmother used to say when my brother and I were running around the house in the 70s, like with, you know, raising all kinds of holy hell because we drank Kool-Aid and ate Twinkies and then had a chocolate bar. And she's like, what do you got? St. Vitus dance? And I never knew what the hell that was because I'm like 7 and I'm like got the, you know, the purple Kool-Aid mustache and I got chocolate on my face and I'm like, I got my action figure. She's like, what the hell? Do you have St. Vitus dance? And I'm like,
What?
the hell is St. Vitus dance? But anyway, now Purple's breaking it down for you. Am I the only one that had experience? I don't know. Sorry to interrupt, Purple. But
No, not at all. I wasn't up to date on my saints either, so I haven't. I'm not familiar with Saint Vitus. But apparently, one of the most well-known major outbreaks took place in Germany. Would you believe? On June 24th,
there's
1374.
a lot of weird, unexplained mass
Yeah.
hysterical things that seem to have happened in Germany, not just in the mid 20th century, aren't there, Purple Valkyrie?
Oh yes, I think a dancing plague is probably one of the milder things that happened. If we're going to be completely honest, but
Yeah,
apparently during
they
this, yep, sorry,
oh, I was going to make a joke that now
yeah,
it's past. I
please,
was going to say they seem
sorry.
to have a real problem with hysteria with ovens, but I'm not going to tell that joke. Go ahead, Purple. Ah, I
Lost
totally
it
broke the stream. Do you love that?
completely.
It's called humor.
Completely
It's great,
derailed
isn't
me.
it? Remember when we used to laugh at funny shit?
I remember when jokes used to be funny.
Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Purple Valkyrie.
So apparently, the afflicted individuals would dance hysterically through the streets for hours, days, and apparently even months until they collapsed due to exhaustion or died from heart attacks or a stroke. Not entirely surprised. The number of participants at any one outbreak, because there were a lot of them, could reach thousands. So, could you imagine it? You were minding your own business, you're in Germany during the 13th century, you're doing whatever you do, and you see a crowd of crazy people come dancing down the street, all dancing to different beats. This isn't one synchronized dance. Everybody's flailing around and banging into each other. It's like a German mosh pit. I would have just gone back inside and locked the door, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've all seen those cringe TikTok videos with all the nurses that were so overworked during all the lockdowns, doing those really now cringe dance moves while putting people on ventilators. And that doesn't even compare with, again, it's the 13th century. You were lucky to live to be 30. You know, you really were. You were a very old man. You were like super wizened if you're 45, you know, and you still have your teeth and stuff like that, you know.
Mm.
So that's what's crazy about this. And we see these things reoccurring, like Purple Valkyrie talked about, over and over and over again. You
Yes, I was
know?
going to say 30-year-olds dropping down with heart attacks. Yeah, probably
Now we
best not.
got 12-year-olds that are athletes. Just
Uh,
it's the climate. It's the
it's
climate.
absolutely yes.
Yeah.
Too many cows. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, look at this. It was originally considered that the dancing mania was a curse, saint by a saint, thought to be Saint John the Baptist or Saint Vitus. Hence the alternative names.
Hmm.
All right. I'll let you finish up with this one. We'll move on to the next one. Wrap it up
Yes.
for us, Purple Valkyrie.
So apparently, people suffering from this condition would therefore go to places dedicated to said saint and pray for deliverance, and probably give money as well to the saint from the affliction. A remedy in quotations that apparently restored many to full health. That sounds familiar as well, Salty. Mm.
Yeah, the church had a monopoly on everything back in the day. Purple Valkyrie.
Yes.
We went from crazy naked, half naked witches in Canada eating dead things in the backyard, to Megan Fox talking about how she knew in the womb the gender of her children and when they were born differently is going to correct that. Now we're going to talk about the Biting Nuns, which was a mass hysterical outbreak in the 15th century. Raise your hand if you have never heard that before, because I have never. The only Biting Nuns I may have seen was on an adult site. Never mind. All right. So in the 15th century, there was another outbreak of mass hysteria. Guess where it happened? That's right, Germany again. When a nun in a convent. What the hell is wrong? I think South Park nail it. What the hell is wrong with Germans? Okay. So when a nun in a convent started biting, I hope she was hot. That would actually make a good adult film. In a convent started biting other sisters. Before long, the behavior spread throughout the convent. So you have multiple sexually repressed nuns biting each other. And as the news spread further, so did the phenomenon of biting nuns.
Woodcuts, or it didn't happen. Yeah.
These outbreaks started occurring throughout Germany in every convent. Not just that, but also in the Netherlands, in Italy as well. It was described by a 15th century doctor, quote, a nun in a German nunnery fell to biting all her companions. In the course of a short time, all the nuns in this convent began biting each other. As the news of this infatuation among nuns soon spread, and it now passed convent to convent throughout the greater part of Germany, principally in Saxony, and then visited the nunneries of Holland, and at last the nuns had the biting mania even as far as Rome.
Wow.
Now the Catholic Church believed the nuns had become possessed and attempted to perform exorcisms to get them to stop biting each other. But this failed to stop the behavior. So they resorted to threats of flogging and dunking them in water for any nun that bit another nun. No more Mr. Nice Pope, you biting nuns. After a few examples of nuns being flogged, again, another video that you can probably find on an adult site. It's so much more fun to talk about this than Rafe Judkins and the Wheel of Time or fucking Rings of Power. The behavior quickly subsided. I never knew anything about this, Purple Valkyrie. This is freaking insane. What does Chad have to say about the biting nuns?
Let me just say, hey, we've got Dempsey in the chat. Great to see you. We've got John D. It says German hardcore nun porn. Not wrong.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good.
And we've got Smile a While for me. Hello, lovely. Good to see you.
Nerdporeal Lifeform is in the house. What did you think of the Biting Nuns, Brian? Are you busy at the moment?
That's a great band name, by the way.
Doing research on Biting Nuns. What do we got here? Who's this from? This is from Nerdporeal Lifeform. I'm not surprised I'm not a mod. You know what I do, Corey? Dude, I'm in the middle of the show. I will hook you up in a second. Smile a While for me says stop or is volunteering to be bitten by a nun. Please clarify in chat. We're not going to judge you either way, but I don't want to rain in your parade. Don't feel judged if you're into that type.
And let me say hey to our favorite vampire as well. Good to see you, Nos.
My box wine brother, Nosferatu the Vampire Purple, go ahead and talk a little bit about the Salem witch trials. I'll let you take this next one while I stop my show to make Brian a mod.
Okay, so this one is probably one that of all of them you guys are most familiar with, especially you Americans in the chat, but this is one of the most notorious instances of mass hysteria, which occurred in Salem, Massachusetts, which is a place I'd actually really love to go. In 1692, dozens of young girls displayed fits of uncontrollable screaming and contortions. That sounds familiar. 2023. Which eventually triggered a flood of witchcraft accusations. Now, these were Puritans, if I remember correctly, weren't they? Yes.
There was, speaking of needing that release, speaking of, they were kind of the flip coin of current year SJWs. I wouldn't call them Trantifa but they were, there was a lot with them. There was a lot. There's a reason why your country kicked their ass out and they came over here and they were pretty brutal and they lived, it was hard coming over here in the colonies. And a lot of people don't realize this, but when the Puritans came over, they wanted to form proto-communism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happened with proto-communism? Virtually everyone died of starvation. They were doing communism right. Okay. Just like Mao, just like Stalin, just like all of them. Just so we're clear on this. But all right, we got an answer from Smile a While. Says, you said, raise your hand if you hadn't heard about mass mania. I was driving, so that was the best I could do. Well, no, it's okay. I appreciate your feedback and we're all good. You just stay safe and drive safe. And Nerdtorial Lifeform is continuing the generosity war. He just gave a membership to my channel. Please go ahead into the settings. If you're on a laptop, you will be able to accept gift memberships if you are not currently a member. Thank you very much, Brian. Please subscribe to Nerdtorial Lifeform if you have not already. He is a good dude. And last night when we were all hanging out texting each other, he actually watched The Wire. So I have the feeling our man Nerdtorial is going to be covering The Wire, which will be a very cool thing. Stick around for the end of the show, because I did build out new titles with an updated channel member list, and it is a woo-woo theme. So this will be updated as you get channel members. And if you join my channel, I plan on doing sometime early next week, maybe Monday night, I want to do a sit down with my channel members and talk about woo-woo. We're just going to hang out and talk about woo-woo and talk about things that I really cannot say online on YouTube about what's coming with War of the Rohirrim, the Wheel of Time. And also I want to hear what you think, what you have to say, because I get tired of hearing myself talk. And Purple Valkyrie is always tired of hearing me talk. Let's be honest about it. But oh wait, Smile a While. Check this out. She's like, just got home from a camping trip. I always go camping and hiking for my birthday. Wait a minute. It was Smile a While for me's birthday. Everybody in chat, let's start singing. You ready? Purple, you're the only one that can. My voice is gone. You know how it is. Will you just give her a little happy birthday? Will you, not to put you on the spot like the asshole that I am, but would you mind singing happy birthday? All right, here we go. Let's go. Everybody start. Let's go.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Smile a While for me. Happy birthday to you.
And many more. Smile a While, you've been a longtime member of this channel. I really appreciate it. So many people have been. I look back at my memberships and I have channel members who supported me for 17 months, 15 months, 12 months. I'm honored and I'm humbled. Thank you. You guys are absolutely fantastic. Roman of the Empire says The Wire is awesome. That's a show that, oh my God, Smile a While for me is 30. I was 30 23 years ago. Enjoy it. Those 30s go quick. I'm glad that you're doing fun stuff outside and camping. It is a good age. So hail to you and happy birthday. Look at everybody in chat wishing happy birthday. That's the kind of group of friends that I like. That's why I love hanging out with you guys. It's great to see you. All right, let's get more into this woo-woo. Then we're going to get into the heavy stuff about the Antarctic, and there are videos, and Salty did work, and no, we're not jerking you around. We are going to cover it. So the next thing we're going to, okay, what else is within this? So as far as, is there anything else that you want to talk about? You were doing the Salem witch trials, correct?
Yes, it's just how influential the Salem witch trials has been, and whenever people think of mass hysteria, this is the one that really gets pulled up because of the connotations and how it's also been it highlights the danger of isolationism, religious extremism, and most importantly, false accusations, because it caused the death of 25 people in Salem and nearby towns.
Again, a lot of the witnesses were angry teenage girls. Interestingly enough, the same one's being exploited by another form of mass hysteria, a social contagion being spread on social media, which has caused a 2,000% increase in young girls claiming to be something they weren't born as. Or am I just a bigot, Purple Valkyrie? I don't know. Everything old is new again.
Yes. Indeed. And that's why we talk about history and bring it into relevance in today, because you can always see patterns. And that's the one thing that we always talk about. If something weird is happening, go back in the past. It's probably happened before.
Now, I wasn't expecting this. I've been around, Purple Valkyrie. I have been around, but I have never heard about the meowing nuns
What is it
of
with
the
nuns?
1800s. Again, you could probably find this on an adult tube site. The meowing nuns. That's not what we're talking about. I'm not going to judge if you're into that. So, institutional settings such as schools, prisons, and tightly-knit communities have often been settings of outbreaks for mass hysteria. And European Christian convents were no different, as we saw with the Biting Nuns. Now, these are the French meowing nuns.
It's not the coolest band name.
There's a book from 1844 called Epidemics of the Middle Ages, and in it is an account of a nun in a convent in France who began to meow like a cat. Now, I have made women meow like a cat, but they were not nuns, nor were they wearing a nun costume, no matter how much I asked. Shortly afterward, other nuns began exhibiting the same meowing behavior.
None see, none do, apparently. Yeah.
Meowing nuns, until the whole convent was plagued with, say it with me, meowing nuns. Oh. Now, this obviously concerned the local French village in which the meowing nuns were, and eventually soldiers from the French army were required to calm the situation down. The nuns were whipped and beaten by the French soldiers until they promised to cease meowing.
I want to get that in writing.
Now, what I'm afraid of is that Disney is going to take this and add some diversity and inclusion and probably a trans story, and they're going to make a cartoon about it. Here's the thing. It'll probably make more money than Elemental did, and certainly more than Little Mermaid. So during this era of the 19th century, obviously belief in possession was common. In France, cats were often viewed as being a familiar in allegiance with the devil. So when you got the meowing nuns and the crazy rednecks in the village who see all the nuns meowing, obviously you have to call the army to strip and beat all of the nuns to get them to stop meowing. Purple Valkyrie, I'm going to let you take this next one. It is, there we go, the laughing epidemic. Here we go.
Yes, and this one is kind of strange, and it's a lot more recent. So this one's from 1962, would you believe? So it's a, how would you pronounce that? Sort of Tanganyika laughing epidemic?
Yes, that's exactly how I would say it.
That's exactly how you would say it. A mission-run boarding school for girls in Kashasa, Tanzania. The laughter started among 3 girls, but quickly spread throughout the entire school. It persisted for hours, days, and then weeks. I bet that was absolutely incredibly irritating, leading to the school's closure on March 18th because the girls wouldn't stop laughing. But it didn't end there. After the school was closed, the mass hysteria then spread to other schools and eventually to other nearby villages. Thousands of children were affected by this epidemic, and 14 schools were forced to close. Anyone think that the kids were actually doing this on purpose to get the schools closed so they didn't have to go to school? The hysteria eventually died down some 18 months after it started. Have you ever heard of this, Salty? Because this one's news to me.
No, but I do know how infectious certain things are, like yawns. Like if I were to yawn right now, you watching this at home or you at home would probably yawn, and Purple Valkyrie would yawn. Like if I wouldn't have mentioned anything about it, you probably would have yawned because it's the power of suggestion. We're going to get into the power of suggestion along with techniques in how to use language and other body motions to convince people that you're not lying to them. But we're going to get into that We're going to get into that. So we got a couple quick things. Smile a While for Me says the meowing nuns of France were the early furries. I think it's entirely possible.
Might be onto something, yes.
Hail to Wadge is in the house and says that
Yay.
cats BS are harmless. I agree with you. I don't know what it is about. Black cats being vilified throughout history. That would actually be a fun show to look at the genus and the anthropological origin of black cats being.
Yes. And even to this day, I don't know if it's the same in the US, but in the UK, around Halloween and all through October, catteries, won't rehome black cats because people either don't want them or will do something very nasty to them during that time.
Smile a While for Me says Pentecostal churches would say the historical laughter is the Holy Spirit. She's pretty sure it's not. I've seen some interesting things in Appalachia. I lived there after college and led Outward Bound on the Appalachian Trail. It was well before all the Yankees moved down there and took over Asheville and all those other places. It was still a very kind of a rural place. And when you wander off the Appalachian Trail into the wrong field, you see weird things. People doing weird things. But hey, as long as they're not hurting themselves or other people, I am gonna judge. I'm just not gonna talk to them about it, So there you go. These are cases of recurring mass hysteria, and we've only touched on a few of them. Of course, this laughter epidemic was from 1962. Now, there are modern day explanations for this. Episodes of mass hysteria continue to occur. One recent one took place in 2012, where nearly 2,000 children across 15 schools in Sri Lanka were treated for a large range of symptoms, including skin rashes, vertigo, and coughing, which had no obvious physical cause. I don't know. Was Bill Gates there? I'm not even trying to be funny. Yeah. Let's talk about India. Look that up. Why is he a wanted man? I forget what country wants him for crimes against humanity. This is real. Look it up. But don't worry. I'm just going to say this. If you buy organic the way I do, I want you to really think about this and really pay attention to this. There's something called APEEL. APEEL. It is, you can go out on a website. This was sponsored by the Gates Foundation. And what it is they're putting it in organic food with very suspect labeling. I'm not going to speak to what this is, but it doesn't belong in organic food. And right now, I know locally, the only place selling organic produce around me is Walmart. I had a friend who bought avocados, and Purple knows who I'm talking about. She runs a restaurant here, and she bought a bunch of organic avocados, didn't pay attention because why would you look at something that says USDA organic on it, and then went to go take it and put it in the restaurant, and then read that it had the APEEL stuff on it and threw the whole damn lot away because of what it is. It's interesting, isn't it? How someone who developed a software system and never went to college is suddenly putting things like that, not just in our bodies now, but in food in suspect ways. All right. Yeah. Sri Lanka.
Funny how history repeats itself, isn't it, Salty?
It is. So that brings us to the meat of the matter, and then we will wind down. Now, there is a lot to cover here, and I want you in chat to let us know what you think. We are going to tread very lightly on something, because when I first saw this, I was incredibly excited. This news comes to us from the Disclosure Project, who is run by Dr. Stephen Greer. Purple Valkyrie, why don't you... Oh, what am I doing here? I'm making myself too big. Purple Valkyrie, talk about who Stephen Greer is and how movies that you've watched and who this individual is. Why I queue up a video on this.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Stephen Greer is someone, if you are familiar with the whole disclosure and UFOs study for extraterrestrials, this is a man that you will know his name. Basically, he is very well known within the circles. He is very knowledgeable, and he's been doing this for a very long time. Now, I first came about finding him through a documentary, and I'll just share it here so you guys can see what it looks like. It was called Unacknowledged.
It's a good movie.
It is. It's a fantastic movie. Highly recommend it. You can find it on various streaming platforms. And this is one that Salty and I came across, and we were actually very impressed with what he talked about. So basically, this is it's a combination of his work. This came out in 2017, and it talks about UFO secrecy and why it's been ruthlessly enforced. And it gives background information about extraterrestrial contacts, and it gives a lot of testimony, which is one of the things Dr. Greer is best known for. He has people that come on who've had encounters, and they tell their story, and in their own words, he doesn't coach them. He lets them tell whatever it is that they had. And this is where we come to the thing that took place on Monday, which we also watched.
Yeah, and if I remember right, this is also this where we kind of both of us. Good Lord! All right, hold on, I got to do this again. This is also where I think both of us sort of learned about Doctor or Werner von Braun.
Yes. Yes,
in the
indeed.
deathbed confession to his assistant, and that is going to be integral in this. Please, as ever, do your own research. Werner von Braun was a Nazi scientist brought over after World War II under Operation Paperclip, where both the United States and the Soviet Union were both grabbing as many scientists as they could, because the Nazis at this time had done incredible things, scientific developments, a lot of them at the cost of murdering and torturing through uninformed consent, both military prisoners of war as well as civilians under Mengele. But they also developed a series of technologies involving rocketry, hence the V2 rocket. There was no one on the planet who could replicate their rocket science where they could bomb the UK and allied sites in far Western Europe. We couldn't even come close to that. They were also probably 3 to 6 months behind us on developing heavy water, which would have been used to develop their own nuclear weapons, of which the United States developed Fat Man and Little Boy. And of course, we had Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And use of those weapons led to World War II ending a lot sooner and with a lot less casualties than it would have. And that may be a controversial take, but that's still the take that I stand by. Purple, what were you going to say?
Agreed. Yes, and this is, I think people don't really understand how integral Werner von Braun was to these topics. People know the name, but they don't realize just what it was. And yeah, as Sosie correctly said, this is the first place in Dr. Greer's documentary where we heard his name and
what he was about.
And what he was about.
And what he said in his deathbed, thank you for reminding me, Purple, which was that he went through all of what was going to happen in the 20th century. He said there's going to be a Cold War. And they were in the middle of it when he died in 1973. He said the next thing to happen is that there's a shadowy group of people out there who want to control the world. This is Werner von Braun saying this, not Salty, not Purple. Okay, but that what was going to happen is that they were the military industrial complex. Again, this is Werner von Braun, the father of NASA, supposedly the man who took us to the moon with the Saturn program, coming out there and saying that the next thing to happen, we're going to go to war in the Middle East. They're going to say it's about oil, but it's really about taking all of the money out of the West. Now, after they've taken all that money, then there's going to be a period by which they rebuild and they organize, and they're going to start pushing for a one world government. And the way it is going to happen, according to Werner von Braun, not me, Werner von Braun, is that they are going to start putting weapons in space. There's a lot of weapons in space right now, a lot of things being developed, and a lot of things around the globe. He said once that happens, they are then going to stage what appears to be a UFO alien invasion of the entire planet, and that the aliens will tell people that they need to have not a number of countries to talk to, but they need one world government to talk to and to deal with. Again, this is not me saying this. This is Werner von Braun. I encourage you to do your own research. Purple Valkyrie, did I screw that up? Is that how you recognize it? Is there any additional detail you want to add to that?
No, that sums it up pretty well, to be honest. As you say, I will preface it and say that I haven't read any of Stephen Greer's books. I just know him from his documentary work. But if you do know anything about ufology and disclosure, you will know his name and you will know how he goes about his work and how he talks about what's been
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah, we already do have weapons in space. There are numerous
Hmm.
unmanned craft that I saw a schematic for what China has, which was probably ripped off from our original designs of what we've had out there. Of course, everybody looked in the news about Space Force, who's out there saying that they just don't have enough trans representation in the Space Force. It's clown world. Isn't it clown world? Aren't you tired of it? Aren't you tired of this messaging and this weirdness? Let's get into this disclosure project meeting. This occurred in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club on June 12th. I'm going to jump through a couple excerpts and then we're going to go to the big story, which is what is being claimed to exist in Antarctica. But I think it's important for us to get a flavor of what was being presented. Again, Dr. Greer is the head of the Disclosure Project. As Purple Valkyrie mentioned, he did a pretty good movie called Undisclosed. He did a second movie in Purple Valkyrie, I think you agree with me on this, which took a weird turn of what
Did.
seemed very informative from the first movie. And at the end of that movie, they were trying to sell you an app to install on your phone.
Yes, it was very new age, I guess would be
Yeah.
the best way to describe it. But the first documentary, highly recommend. Yeah, give it a go, guys, if you're interested.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at this. Is Dr. Greer speaking, and this is about something that a lot of you, if you've been following woo-woo out there, will know it by immediately. Here we go.
What hasn't been told when this event happened in the early 2000s, particularly one of them, we have matching top secret witness testimony of them being a man-made object that our jet pilots and military don't know exists. This is dangerous in terms of deconflicting operations. The operations that have been building these are deep black illegal, and they are not disclosing it properly to the authorities in our constitutional democracy.
So, wow, way to drop me out big. I can do this. So, we're all familiar with that. That's the Tic Tac UFO from the Nimitz Strike Force group that happened, I believe, in 2002. Dr. Greer was speaking on that. That was what kicked off the entire presentation. Again, you can find the entire presentation from the National Press Club. I will put the link in this video after we're done. Purple, please remind me. It's a 3-hour conference. There's some fascinating topics. Now, I'm going to be jumping around and it's going to be kind of grab-assing right now. But Purple Valkyrie, take it from me while I pull some art.
Yes, as you say, this was a long conference and it had a variety of guests. But the one that we're really going to focus on today is the gentleman that talked about the Antarctic. It was a gentleman by the name of, let me pull him up. It was Eric Hecker was the guy's name. I believe he spoke later on in the. He was one of the ones towards the end of this particular conference, and all of them they got up on stage, addressed the audience, and they were given as much time as they needed to tell their story. And what he told was kind of fascinating.
So here's the attendees. Again, this occurred on June 12th. We had a lieutenant colonel retired from the Air Force, a former Marine, a former Army soldier, someone else formerly of the United States Army, Raytheon contractor, and that's who Purple was talking about, and then an attorney, Derek S. Green. We're going to be focusing on Michael Herrera. And this is where we have to be very careful.
Agreed.
And if you think I'm kidding, I'm not. So overall, this presentation was consistent with what you would expect from a woo-woo UFO presentation. They brought forward former United States servicemen and women talking about their experiences as well as defense contractors. What's also interesting is they brought in people who have a great deal of attachment to the national security apparatus and intelligence. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at the Antarctic footage. We're going to stop and make it transformative, and then we're going to focus on something that I want all of you to please look at. But let's get into this fun thing here. And Purple, vamp for me while I bring this up.
And I will preface it, everything that we talk about, these are just our opinions, guys. This isn't fact. This is us giving our honest takes on what we watched and what we've seen and what we've researched so far. This is something that, as Salty said, only happened a few days ago. We watched the entire thing. I believe it was not yesterday, but the day before. We stopped, paused, went back, really studied what was going on, what was being said, and then went into the background of all of these gentlemen to see what we could find and what their connections were.
And not just us. There were other people on Twitter and other sites that saw exactly what Purple did and exactly what I did. So we're not imagining things. And started looking at the backgrounds of this individual. Because if you remember, it was last week that somebody came out and made a big kerfuffle about, I saw UFOs and I saw all this other stuff. And it turned out that person had only been told all about this stuff. And I was talking with Dina with the Late Horror Show about it, and back and forth on Twitter, because we shared the article. And then I sent him an article that said who this person was, where he was basing his stories on, and things start to take a different frame. All right, let's get into this thing with the, this is the presentation on the Antarctic and the starting revelations as to what this individual claims is going on there.
I'd like to introduce Eric Hecker. He's a Raytheon contractor based for about a year at the South Pole. He was involved in a neutrino light array. He has an enormous amount of information.
In 2010, I was selected to go down to the South Pole Station in Antarctica for an entire year by Raytheon Polar Services as an employee of a third-party contractor for the National Science Foundation.
This is important. This gentleman was at the Antarctic in 2010, 13 years ago, for one deployment. Bro Valkyrie, what is he wearing?
What is he wearing?
He's wearing the uniform of someone who would be currently based, stationed, and working on site in the Antarctic. Little strange 13 years after the fact, isn't it?
Where did he get that? Yes.
Was it the gift shop?
In a dual-role capacity as a tradesman and a firefighter. My responsibilities required me to be more informed than most of my crew and offered me complete access to the facilities. What I learned from this unique experience needs to be shared with the entire world. The technology at the South Pole Station certainly can do what it is presented as its primary purposes, and unfortunately, much more.
So did you catch that? Purple Valkyrie, what does this guy do? Is he a scientist? Is he a lead? Is he constantly in contact with what he's talking about?
No, and he also mentions that he was a firefighter there. Because there is such a small personnel, everybody has to go through firefighting training. It's just something that you have to do if you are there. You have to know basic safety, because the last thing that you want in the Antarctic, in these sort of rooms, is an uncontrolled fire when you're nearby.
Yeah, so this guy was basically a maintenance man. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but generally, and I think you would expect this, whenever you're talking about clean rooms or areas that have special scientific projects going on within them, do you think they'd let the guy who's essentially Mr. Fix-It, or a plumber, which is what this guy currently does? He's a plumber to a lot of very wealthy people in Long Island. Would they let this guy around top secret stuff? Just a question. We'll continue.
The Ice Cube neutrino detector is presented as a passive listening device for the purposes of the science as presented. But I'm going to skip right through the chase, folks. I have provided documentation that proves that the 5,160, what they call DOMs, that are embedded in the ice can actually transmit at 2,047 volts each.
Let's pause there. I'm going to take this super chat from our man Snowdub. He says, "Hey, Purple. Hey, same name. They need Kurt Russell." Well, you're not wrong there, dude. They need Kurt Russell and a sombrero. That's what they need. Hail to you, Snowed Up. Thank you so much for
Good to see you.
Great show last night.
Yes. Yeah.
Talk about this, Purple.
Yes, just to pick up on what he's saying. Essentially, what he's describing, he's saying that this area, this base, is essentially air traffic control for exotic crafts.
Yeah, we're not there yet, but we will be. And the big thing with this is he was talking about this thing. Now, this is an actual project called the Ice Cube Neutrino project, and we will look at it later, but what it is they put hundreds of probes in the ice to study neutrinos. And what he said is that these detectors, which kind of look like, you remember in Star Wars, there's this little ball that has a syringe that floats around and they're going to torture Princess Leia with it. That's what it looks like. It looks almost exactly like that. And they dug these deep shafts in the ice of the Antarctic to try and track neutrinos, which are things that are floating all around through space and are released for a variety of cosmic reasons. Now, I'm not an astrophysicist, but he said that each of these devices are capable of 2,000 volts. Now, why this is relevant? Because if you're going to broadcast is measured in watts. Watts are a function of volts, which is essentially how much power there is, in amps, which are the force behind the volts. Now, I know nobody wants to get into basic electronics here, and I'm butchering it a little bit, but you need to understand this is when someone talks about volts, 2,000 volts, what is something that essentially could produce, if you take 2,000 volts, what type of power would it need to create something like that? Well, let's go with 20 amps. Okay. That would be 40,000 watts, which would then give you around 2,200 volts. I know it's getting weird, right? Here's the thing. You know what else is capable of producing something with the equivalent of, and I can do this, I'm totally going to hose this thing up. You know what else is capable of producing the exact same amount of power that he just talked about? That is a commercially available broadcast transmitter for a medium power FM radio station. Now, they go up in power. This is 40,000 watts, which is essentially a mid-grade something you do on a commercial scale if you have an FM radio station. They go up to 80,000. But again, if you're looking at just the science of this, and I could be wrong, but when I hear somebody talk about broadcasting and only mentioning volts, it's sort of irrelevant. Does it require a fair amount of power? Yes, but 2,000 volts, you can run a generator and you're still going to measure how many watts you get out to produce power. Just thought this was weird, guys. I just thought this was really strange with what he's talking about here. Let's continue and let's go on with his presentation. You didn't do a horrible job describing it. Thank you.
Yay.
I know how to build this shit and I can solder stuff and everything else, but I haven't had to do this since I was a teenager because I grew up around amateur radio stuff. And yes, I do. I'm one of those nerds. So yeah, DJ Ronnie G, he throws this out there, converting a low input into a higher voltage. That's what we don't get to do. He just drops these names and I think he expects people to react to him.
Yes, voltage sounds impressive and he thinks that people aren't going to go further into it, but it's amps that you want to look at.
In watts for broadcasting, because and we're going to get into that. Should he have a tin foil with that uniform? Well, I have a tin foil cap. All right, let's watch this.
It gives us a long list of things to consider. It is effectively a multifaceted directed energy weapons platform that I will list rapidly a few things that it can do. Vehicle detection. We're learning that these off-world craft, on-world craft, ours or other nations, are also emitting neutrinos. So this makes the South Pole Station effectively an air traffic control station for this new level of equipment that nobody's discussing.
So these are assertions. He said that he gave all of this documentation to the United States government and to the Congress. He doesn't name names. He also does not provide this documentation to the media. I'm not saying he didn't. I just haven't seen any indications that that's what's occurred. Purple Valkyrie, what's your reaction to this since I have fire trucks going by?
What he's describing, and I think he goes further into it, we'll cover it in a minute, is actually something that's kind of mediocre. He's describing sensory, which is actually remote LiDAR detection. This is a laser ranged, and it sounds impressive and it sounds far out there, but when you kind of break down the technology, iPhones can do LiDAR. Now, just going by this picture that he's put up, I had a hard time deciphering what this was. And so he's got the, whatever those are, buried in the ground, which he talks about. And I'm guessing the thing above is what directs
Yeah, those are the balls that are placed deep
Yep.
in the ice, and they're these
Mhm.
vast chambers, and I've got pictures of them. We'll get through this. But what this guy is doing, he's making all of these assertions, and he's
Yes.
wearing a uniform for an organization he no longer works for that he did 13 years ago. He's making a lot of really cool claims, and I want this to be real. Like I do.
Same.
There's a point to all this. Let's get through this here and watch some more of this.
In addition to the ability to detect neutrinos and the exotic vehicles, I have provided documentation that shows that this is also a system for faster than light communications. In the past, Gary McKinnon has hacked NASA, found the off-world fleet, the list of captains, and it's apparent that if we have faster than light vehicles moving throughout this system, we're going to need faster than light communications. This is...
So we just made a pretty big jump there. Okay. We went from this guy was a firefighter, a dual trained firefighter / technician supporting the Antarctic base 13 years ago, to now him saying that this passive array trying to measure neutrinos, which are passing through all of us and pass through Earth and pass through space all the time. And this station has detected 28 new ones, if I read the white papers correctly, that somehow this thing, which is 2000 volts, and again, I'm trying to play with the electronic theory on this to get what the broadcasting power would be. Looking at it the way I did, it would be a 40,000 watts or less, which is essentially the size of a mid-grade FM radio station, and you all know how far that can go. He's saying that this is actually in contact with an interstellar fleet that we have of faster than light vehicles. That is a big jump. That is a big jump. And I would love if that was true. Purple Valkyrie, am I being too hard on this guy?
No, not at all. And as you say, I really want this to be true, but the science doesn't stack up when you start to break it apart. And that's what it falls apart, at least for me, in my opinion. A faster than light technology, do we have it? Are we communicating? Not with balls buried in the ice.
Yeah, let's watch some more.
Unfortunately, I have other bad news. The season that I was there, 2010 to 2011, we converted from construction to operations and maintenance in both the elevated station and the detector array. Unfortunately, when they first fired it up, that was when we had the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand. There's two.
So there's big claim. This guy says that because they turned on this passive array down there in the Antarctic, the moment that they did it, he asserts that there was a massive earthquake in Christchurch, New Zealand. You can go and look. You can see that an event did occur on that day. His assertion would appear to be that he was working on a project there in the Antarctic where they buried these detection balls, that was a weapon, which inadvertently caused an earthquake on the Earth.
That's a huge claim, and I've been to Christchurch. I've actually been to Christchurch when there's been an earthquake. It wasn't the one that the gentleman's talking about, but it's not unknown because, like a lot of islands, New Zealand is volcanic. It's built on a plate.
Watch says he's been watching too much Star Trek, and from the sounds of it, Kurtzman New Trek, which is totally dog shit. Punkwaddle says, so is he a plumber or a cleaner? I think the answer is yes. I don't know. He is definitely a plumber now. If you go look at his bio, and Ms. Martin Muse is in the house. Hail Teresa. Got a 99-cent Red Rose super sticker. Thank you so much, Teresa.
Thank you.
You're fantastic. There we go. Breaking it down, correlation is not causation. This guy's making a lot of assertions. I think it would be great if they were true. I just don't see any evidence to see a lot of what, again, I'm seeing a pattern of things where people coming out, making these claims, saying that they did things and saying they gave things to people, not naming who they are, and then showing us what they gave them. Because if this guy had all of this, why wouldn't he be going around and talking about it? You know,
why not 13 years ago when he was there?
Punkwaddle's in the house and he's causing all kinds of trouble. I had to walk away for a second, but if FM radio stations can cause earthquakes, then I think we should be in worse shapes right now. That was a comparison of the wattage, because that's the power that comes out of an antenna in a signal. It's measured in watts. Watts is derived from volts and what's pushing the volts, which are amps. And when you talk about a radio, 40,000 watts only gets you so many miles. It depends on the geography and topography and things like that. That's why if you have one of those crappy HD TV antennas and you have a mountain in front of you, it's not like it used to be when it was broadcast. But that's a whole other story. Let's try and get through this, and then we'll
Dental
jump to
shocks
some other
before
stuff.
they were able to target it correctly. This is an earthquake generating device as well. This is the weapons of war that we have to deal with now and what Raytheon's hiding. There's an ELF system at the South Pole Station that when I arrived, I was told it was off, dismantled, and completely defunct.
ELF, extremely low frequency. In the 80s, they built ELF installations to communicate with our attack subs. Extremely low frequencies, because essentially they use the Earth as a sounding board to send signals to the attack fleet, which were very hard to track by the Soviet Union. It's fascinating. There's an installation similar to that in Minnesota. We're noticing a pattern here, aren't we? What is true? What is conjecture? What is fact? What is made up bullshit? It's a tough thing.
Yes, and we talked about it, I believe, even last week, we were talking about how we had the Vegas witnesses with the UFOs, we had the gentleman come forward with the whistleblower, and now, as of this week, we have this huge conference with a very well-known panel and more whistleblowers coming forward with stories of things that they've witnessed, things that they've seen, but we've not really a lot to back it up, in my opinion.
Science has been broken since 1920, since they killed Tesla and took all of his stuff. And now Tesla's stuff is starting to be released 100 years later than it should have been. Punkwaddle, I don't want you to behave. I'm being funny. Ooh, that's smile away from me. Punkwaddle, don't behave. You just be you. You're awesome, dude. It's great to see you.
Always.
Yeah. All right. There's a lot to this because this guy packs a hell of a lot in a couple of minutes and throws all this stuff out.
I will rapidly just tell you, I had to figure out the circuitry for certain other repairs, and I found that this system is in fact completely energized, up and running, and being...
So this guy now is a plumber. He's a plumber. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's in his bio on the website for the Disclosure Project. He is a plumber to high-end clients in Long Island. The skill set required to be an electrician is very different from being an electronics specialist. An electrician wires your house, wires institutional areas, would provide service for this, run conduit, new installations. That's an electrician, someone who does electronics, and the kind of electronics he's talking about, an electrician might know some of it, but to think that this guy, they're going to oh yeah, go ahead and work on the ELF thing that we used to send signals to our nuclear attack subs on. And then, by the way, we're going to let you dig around and show you that we actually are in contact with an alien fleet, and you're not going to tell us for 13 years. This is where things kind of get weird to me.
It kind of falls apart, and he makes a lot of very, very grand claims in a very short space of time.
Here we go.
The Atmospheric Research Observatory is in what we call the clean air sector. I witnessed myself a very powerful green laser shooting out of the top of this facility into the cosmos. This, I believe, is a secondary form of long-range communications and or a defense system. I am not...
Now we've got a giant green laser being shot of the middle of the Antarctic. Again, I would love if this was true. I would love if somebody showed me video, or if someone could look on a satellite and show me what that was. I would love that, or somebody did something. We don't have any of that evidence. We got somebody saying that all these things occurred. I want this to be true.
Yes. And we have seen green lasers being shot up into the sky. We saw one recently in Hawaii. But bearing in mind, this gentleman is talking about something that happened 13 years ago.
We've got DJ Ronnie G says green lasers look really bright because our eyes are more sensitive to green. It's true. All right, I'm going to let this cat finish
Saying
up,
that
and
we
then we're
need to
going
be scared of anything that's out there, but please understand the military-industrial complex is happy to invest all of your money in alleviating their fears.
I believe that. Actually, I think they're very happy with taking our money. Look at the Crimea. Look at Iraq. Look at Vietnam. Look at Korea.
A question of power comes into play for all of these facilities that are present. I assure you, I knew what was going on. I knew the load demands of the facility, and all of these new items exceed the demand for the systems that I was presented. I am doing due diligence and research. I believe there is either a secondary power supply there that is either nuclear, that was there prior to the start of the Antarctic Treaty, which prohibits such things, and or that there is some sort of exotic power supply system there that just is not in the verbiage of the treaty, so it negates the responsibility to the parties involved.
What did he just say? What is an exotic power supply that pre-existed on the ice continent of the Antarctic that we're now using to power our command and control system for a faster than light fleet of ships that we have out there in concert with the aliens that we've been in contact with?
Yes, it sounds like there's a loophole that's been exploited because as they are not allowed to build anything nuclear in the Antarctic, but there is nothing to say that they could not make use of something that was already there.
DJ Ronnie G, you call me a conspiracy theorist. He says they're powering them. This exotic power supply is strippers. Alien strippers buried in the ice. I think it makes about as much sense as what we're hearing here. And this is what pisses me off about this. You know, I think there are legitimately crazy things that are going on that it can't be explained. And now I've got a plumber who 13 years ago worked at the Antarctic telling me that there's an alien power source present, and that it's commanding an interstellar fleet of faster than light vehicles in Raytheon. Let me tell you about, I got to be careful. I'm not going to say, go ahead.
I was thinking, I think for me, it's the time difference that really falls. That's the big sticker where he's talking about everything. Now, if you think how quickly technology advances, if we had this 13 years ago, as he's describing, what would we supposedly have there now, and could it be hidden? It doesn't stack up for me, unfortunately. And I as Salty said, I would love for some of this to be true, but we have to be objective about this.
So yeah, we've got Anime Night 1992 says basically Death Star testing, joking aside, I haven't seen much evidence with this green laser in Antarctica, but we've seen it from another place with HAARP, but still, and that's the problem we have. And that's what makes this stuff dangerous. There's actual things going on. There are. Look at the green lasers and what was going on in Hawaii. We covered it on the show. There were events that have occurred in Scandinavia with strange things going on with light. Something is going on, but I think this is obfuscation. And we're going to get into it in my assertion of this. I think this, and then the gentleman we're about to watch, are maybe clouding our judgment on this and redirecting our attention to something else and getting us to buy into a narrative. And something else is really going on. But let's finish this up real quick, and then we will get out of here because this is important.
Covers it for time. If anybody wants to find out more, I have a website where all this information is at. For brevity, I'll wrap it up, but you can go to deciphering.tv. I've documented all of this stuff, and information is available.
So that's it. I wanted to show this stuff because I want you to understand what was being presented at this conference. And this guy, I think, was probably the most explosive. Now, there was a gentleman before him. Do I think there are weird things in the Antarctic? Absolutely. Are there weird gravitational anomalies in the Antarctic? Yes. There's a deep freshwater lake in the middle of the Antarctic. Look at that and look at the weird stuff. Look at the life forms they're finding there. Elon Musk's satellites found that a large mass of something was moving onto the Antarctic. It turned out to be a bunch of plankton or something else like that. It was native to the area. The Antarctic, I think, is a really weird place. It's just that to hear this stuff being said in a conference with these types of individuals is troubling. And I'm just going to jump to it. And Purple, you're going to have to keep me from saying a lot of things that I want to say. This is essentially the money shot. Go ahead, Purple.
Agreed, yes. So as Salty said, this was the one that really caught our eye. So this is a gentleman by the name of Michael Herrera. He was another witness who gave testimony on the disclosure events. It wasn't so much what the gentleman was saying, which it was interesting to hear, but it was more to do with how he looked as well.
So,
But we'll give a brief breakdown of what it was he said first, I think.
So to give you a context of what he said, this is he was a former Marine. He served in Indonesia on active duty in 2009. This article actually came out 2 days before he presented at the conference and had his full story. What's fascinating about this, again, is there's Indonesia, all this detail about what he found. And there's, of course, Dr. Greer, and that's not the article I was looking for. Let's just go ahead and do this. So Michael Herrera was presenting, talking about the UFO that he recovered in Indonesia in 2009. Please, I'm going to drop everything out. I want you to look at his appearance and what it is that, I don't know, just in general, let's just take a look at this.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for being here. What I'm about to tell you hasn't been something that I've disclosed until recently in the help of Dr. Greer, among other people, so I appreciate your help with this.
All right, where are we? Why aren't we on screen? This is really weird. Let me try dropping this out. Here we go.
There we
let's bring
go.
it back in. There we are.
Go. Perfect. Okay. Now, we picked up on this almost immediately, and we weren't the only ones. This is something that a lot of people picked up on immediately, and I think it's fair to say, Salty, it confused most people seeing this. Now, some people might not be familiar with what this pin is, but those who know what it is, you get it. Says, I don't get it. Colorblind, though. Shall we describe for our audience what this is? Yeah.
This is a symbol worn by those people who are administrators and in support of the World Economic Forum and their agenda. It was formerly called Agenda 21, and it became Agenda 2030, and I believe the parlance is now called the Great Reset.
Yes.
What is fascinating about this is I was not the only person to see this. There are comments on the video out there on YouTube where people also saw this. I posted a question of why is he wearing a Great Reset World Economic Forum pin at a UFO conference where this is supposedly revealing about how the government and all these transnational corporations are conspiring to not tell us about aliens. And yet here's a guy who it would appear, in my opinion, to be representing the very forces and the governing forces that would be behind such a thing. That's why I wanted to do this video. And I tried to do this slowly because I wanted to present to you, understand what a potential thing could be with this. Do you all remember when we were told 2 weeks to slow the spread, and don't worry, we don't have to cut off travel from people from China because reasons, and all of the other stuff that then led to a lockdown for 2 years and forced inoculation? Otherwise you lose your livelihood or your job or your children, and you couldn't go to church. Same types of tactics here. Now, I'm not in any way inferring that Mr. Herrera was responsible for that, but what I do have a question of is, why would someone that wouldn't be a part of the World Economic Forum be wearing a pin that is demonstrative of the Great Reset at a conference being hosted by what is supposedly an independent project, which is supposedly trying to get the truth about aliens out there, because the government and these same transnational corporations are abusing the system and not telling us about it. What could be some potentials of this in your opinion, Purple Valkyrie?
Yes, it confused us entirely. It does, as the chat says, a huge conflict of interest. It seems you are not incorrect, and we really, as you can see with Salty's screen cap, we had to make sure that we were right. We
Yeah.
didn't want to run with this if we weren't entirely certain. We rotated the image. We pulled up various pictures. We got as many screenshots as we could. It's also worth noting that the gentleman also has a Masonic pin on his tie. Whether that's got anything to do with it, I don't know as well. But it just is it's a huge red flag for me.
Yeah. And again, what did we cover? How long has it been? A couple of months ago, Purple Valkyrie, with the UFOs over the United States that they never recovered wreckage of, but don't worry, they're just Chinese weather balloons, and the Pentagon couldn't track them because it's dark. Do you guys remember all that bullshit? And over and over and over, they're keeping it in the news. They're keeping it in the news so that UFOs. We had hearings this year. We had hearings last year. We had the release from the Nimitz Strike Group. We have all of this, and it started, and they keep it going. They're keeping it in the consciousness. One of the fascinating things about people who wear this pin, and again, in my opinion, I believe that is a Great Reset World Economic Forum pin. And again, there are multiple people that I found who are now commenting on that video that saw the same thing and have asked these same questions. Why is someone from the Sustainability Initiative of the World Economic Forum talking about the very corporations that would make that up and would be in their best interests to do exactly what it was that they're supposedly revealing? And why would you wear this? And then to wear it on an international presentation at the National Press Club in DC, where everybody who goes there knows exactly who's going to see it. What's fascinating about these pins is, depending on how you wear these pins, what is at the top and what is aligned color-wise is what your focus is on behalf of the World Economic Forum.
And this is fascinating, and I did not know this until we started doing the research.
So I tried to align the pin as best as I could. That appears to be the way it is stationed. So if you look, and I don't know if I can go into it or not. If you look at the pin, and we'll look at the picture that I put of the actual pin itself, and someone else's the pin. The very top is a dark blue, and you can see it facing up on his collar. That dark blue is indicative of partnerships with foundations and government. Now, in my opinion, if this is a World Economic Forum, that this pin that this individual is wearing, in my opinion, and based upon the research I have done, that would indicate that this individual is primarily responsible for the very partnerships that they claim to be exposing.
Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
No. So yeah, this is one of those things where I've joked about having my door broken down and other things like that. But it's funny, when I posted a response to this and put the picture up and simply asked a question, saying, isn't this a conflict of interest? I was immediately blocked on Twitter. All of the comments from people on YouTube who also pointed this out in the video got an auto bot hit with a marker on their comment. Wish I was kidding. So again, what has all this bullshit been about? Why have I slow rolled this? Because I'm trying to present to you an opinion that I have based upon research that I've done. And nothing makes me sadder than seeing this. And if it's true, it actually breaks my heart. It really does. Because the question is who isn't lying to us? Who isn't lying to us about this? And it gets a little exhausting, because all of this goes back to, if you think about it, what is the simplest explanation? Sometime a straight line. I'm not saying my analysis is the only one. Purple Valkyrie, you can come up with your own. But if what Werner Braun said, and was written down by his research assistant on his deathbed in 1973, that the last card to be played before the same corporations that were trying to exploit the world through Vietnam, through what happened in Iraq, through all of this bullshit and throughout the Cold War, that the last card they were going to play, because they're tired of us as carbon, is going to be a one world government brought on by a staged alien invasion. That is not Salty's statement. That is Dr. Werner von Braun of NASA. Now, if that's the case, is it plausible that what we're seeing with all of the stuff going on, with all of this UFO stuff being unreported by the same people who pushed COVID, MSNBC, the big television networks, all of this stuff, these were networks and stations and forms of media that were always skeptical of UFO stuff and thought we were kooks and cranks. Suddenly now it's like, oh, look, it's really happening. And here's this guy. Well, this guy, I don't know. Purple, I'm going to get upset and I'm going to say something I don't want to say. Take it a little bit, please.
We were upset, and we sat on this for a couple of days and really went into it, and we went back and forth between ourselves. Do we even bring this up because of what the implications are? And I think it's important to show you guys and let you guys make up your own minds. We'd never tell you what to think, but there is a narrative being played out here. I think you can follow the stories, and this has been going on for probably at least the beginning of 2023. The one big thing that has been consistent throughout this year, other than obviously what's going on between two countries that are currently having a bust up, it is the idea that we are not alone in the universe, the idea that disclosure is coming. Whereas before, people who talked about UFOs, they were looked down upon. They were, cranks. It's not to be talked about. Now it's in the mainstream consciousness, and people may not be thinking about it, but it is always there in the back of their minds, and that is what we are getting. We're being drip fed this idea.
And it's normalizing things, the release of the footage from Nimitz, the fact that there are these triangle vehicles that are flying over California and Nevada all the time with all the lights. I don't know what they are. All I know is there's been a stated purpose for an agenda by the people who produce that pin, because that pin is representative of what ESG, the same ESG that's affecting our entertainment. That's all driven by these same people too.
Mm-hmm.
How and why would they use these people? Well, again, they're trying to normalize what this is. So when this event happens, in my opinion, will be a staged alien invasion hoax using whatever. It could be HAARP, could be whatever kind of crazy stuff. Who knows, right? We watched 2 towers fall down from jet fuel, which is structurally impossible. And then we committed trillions of dollars to something. Remember that?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Why wouldn't we believe the fake alien laser light show thing with HAARP and all this other stuff? This is what I'm concerned about. This is really what I'm concerned about, is the infiltration in the paranormal community and the UFO community and people trying to find out what's really going on by bad actors. Now, I don't know who a bad actor is. I'm just saying it's really weird that a guy who claims to be a whistleblower on all these things is wearing a pin for an organization who, in my opinion, would seem to be highly invested in producing an outcome that we've been warned about.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is something that does not have the general population's best interest at heart.
You guys in chat, we're not all going to agree, and that's why I love this. I love you guys coming up with your own theories on this, because together we can hash this thing out. My finding, in my opinion, doesn't have to be anybody else's. I don't speak for Purple Valkyrie.
Nope.
You can tell me what you think about that. Is, yeah, we're seeing it all in entertainment, the normalization of these things. What does Punk Waddle say? He's usually the voice of reason. We had an apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic stories for a good 15 years. It's true.
Yeah.
Normalizing dystopia, because that's essentially what the creepy stuff is. And putting all of this entertainment, now it makes much more believable because it's in our fiction. That's because they're normalizing this. They're creating a narrative, and the narrative requires, let's think about this. The aliens want to contact us, but they don't want to have to contact individual leaders of individual countries. This is a theory of mine, right? So what could fix that? Because we need one voice representing us with the aliens, Purple Valkyrie. What would be the solution to that? What would it be, Purple?
It would be a one world government.
I don't know. Again, it's ridiculously simple. It's ridiculously simple. It's really infuriating. So this is what I wanted to cover. We're going to go back to covering fun stories about biting and meowing nuns and pirate ships and possession and cryptids and Bigfoot and all those things. But this is something, given the scope and the scale and the constant reoccurrence in promotion by media who always ignored these stories.
Yes,
Just
they were
asking
always
you
on the back
to
page.
tell me
Yeah.
what you think about it. I formed an opinion. I just think this is really, really weird.
It is, and we
Wow.
would love to hear from you guys in the comment section what you think, because we want to continue this discussion. We really do, and obviously, Salty said we are going to continue with the fun stuff, but we're also going to continue bringing these stories because I think it is incredibly important to show what is going on, to shine a light on these things. We were so excited to find out that this disclosure event was happening. This is. We're familiar with Stephen Greer's work. We knew what to expect, but I don't think either of us really expected what we watched. I think is the best way to put it.
You were upset about this.
I was
And I'm not
upset.
going to out you, but it's demoralizing to realize, in my opinion, the extent of how much the coordinated lies are occurring across the board. But we were lied to for 2 years, weren't we?
Yes. It's disheartening how easy it is to mislead a population.
I showed this to my brother and he's like, holy shit, is this real? And, I had to look at research and see what it was. You guys, we'd have a hell of a good show today. We will
Yes,
be
we
back
did.
with some really crazy, weird, wacko, fun, hopefully not get assassinated topics, like crazy medical procedures from the Middle Ages and things like that. But this is one of those shows where I'm not the only person saying this. This is the only time I've seen anybody talk about like this on YouTube, but go and look at the video for this and I will put links out there later.
Yes,
Or
indeed.
just look on YouTube for the Disclosure Project at the National Press Club, June 12th. You can see the entire presentation and what they're presenting in this. And you can start, and then once you start looking at the backgrounds of these individuals, you will kind of start to see where I'm coming from with this. You don't have to agree with me. It's just my opinion. All of this is opinion.
Yes.
I find several of the speakers there to be very troubling, especially if you look at their attachment to organizations. Let's say that. Purple Valkyrie,
Hey.
thanks
What
for
a
being here
great
today.
show. Thank
I
you.
hope we don't end up in Guantanamo Bay because that's no longer for truly bad people who do horrifying things. It's for people with wrong think.
Wrong think, yes, and there's a lot of that going about apparently. Before we do start to wrap up, let me shout out a couple more people because we've got an amazing chat today. We've got Amanda Manefron, great to see you. He's joined us. We have got Untamed Mando. Hello, lovely. Great to see you as always as well. Thank you guys, and thank you for everybody who came today. We love getting to talk about these topics. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes like this, it's a game of two halves, and we have to be serious as well.
Yeah. It's like when they tell us, it's just the same thing that they've been doing with entertainment and gaslighting us. It's not just occurring in entertainment. Everybody, I am so glad you've been here. Those of you watching on the rewatch, please hit the thumbs up. Next week, we will be coming back. I'm not sure whose channel. I'll definitely be doing this, I think, on next Saturday as well. It's great to be back. I have rebuilt out a lot of titles and outros and things like that because when I needed to take a break from YouTube with some of the stuff that's going on. If you haven't, please check out the War of the Rohirrim video that I did. I think it's important. Again, primary research, not copying other people's stuff. So there you go. Purple, what do you got going on? What do you want to shout out there? I do want to tell people, please look at Untamed Mando. I don't know if any of my mods have her link in the chat. She does great work. We've worked together on Tolkien projects. I was pinging her and mercilessly bothering her on her own live stream today, and it was a lot of fun to watch. She's another talented, hardworking, unique content creator out there who's doing good work. Purple,
Agreed.
what do you got going on?
Well, I think it's time we got back to doing some more woo-woo on Wednesdays. So if Salty can manage, and he's a very busy man, but we do love doing it. I'd love to get back to Woo-Woo Wednesday, and as he said, talk about some weird medical stuff. We have so much woo-woo in a pile. It could take us a year to get through.
Got
Stacks of
stacks.
it.
All right, and there's the link for Untamed Mando. Go check her out. She's been hustling
Yes.
for a long, long time. Thank you to everybody who's been here, all my channel members. If you are a member of my channel, you will notice in the outro, I have built a new paranormal woo-woo-based outro for you. Please stick around. Your name will be on it. Those of you who watch this, please leave your comments in the comments section below. YouTube demonetizes every damn thing that I make involving woo, along with Purple Valkyrie, and that's okay. That's okay. Thanks everybody for being here. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. This has been a blast, but yeah, take care. Anything you want to say before we bolt?
No, just thank you, Salty, for tackling this topic. I know how important it was and how difficult it was to do some of the research because it's not easy to find, but it's very proud to have been able to talk about this today. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the new intro. Adios.
Bye.